Good morning. Happy Sunday. Thanks for coming to commiserate with me. I've got my coffee. This is Kay Steinsapier. Um, this is one of the highlights of my days, and I'm enjoying it so much that I don't like to have my coffee by myself anymore. I like to have it with you. So thanks for being here. We had a very challenging day yesterday, as you know. It was the fourth anniversary since Molly passed, and it was a really, really heavy day. And in a sense, every day obviously is very painful and difficult for us without Molly. But the anniversaries, the birthdays, the holidays are somehow even more painful. So yesterday, I physically felt ill all day. Nate was curled up on the couch with a terrible headache all day. It's like grief manifests physically. And any of you who are listening or watching who are grieving probably can relate to that. The physical manifestation of the pain that we have inside. And that's part of why I'm doing this podcast and why I'm writing, is because I know what happens when you keep all of these feelings locked inside of you unexpressed, because I did that. In my early life, I had a lot of trauma as a child. I witnessed and experienced a lot of violence and a lot of abuse and a lot of neglect. And those those experiences lived inside of me unexpressed. All of the grief that I felt about that, all of the fear, all of the anger, everything that I felt just lived inside of me, and it made me sick. I think it is largely the reason why I got cancer at 39 with no family history, with no risk factors. And so I'm not doing that anymore. I'm fully expressing everything that I experience. And I think that's a healthier way to live. Life is very difficult. We all experience painful and difficult losses, as so many of us are right now. And I think we have to express them. So if you want to express your losses, I welcome you to come and sit with me, and we'll figure out how to conference you in. I already have plans for some of my friends I can't wait for you to meet, to join us here for coffee or whatever people want to enjoy as we commiserate. So um, despite the fact that I felt like shit yesterday, John and I did go out for an early dinner. We are now in a new area. We're in Venice, which is physically not far from the Palisades, but it's very different in terms of, sort of vibe. It's fun in the sense that lots of great restaurants, shops. It's very lively. As many of you know about Venice, right? It has Muscle Beach and all of the interesting characters. I love all the murals. We had to fight, even though Theater Palisades had the idea to do the mural of Molly. We had to work so hard and advocate to get that done on that building, which sadly just burned. But the muralist, Jules, lives here in Venice, and her work is seen everywhere. So there are murals and art and creativity and all of that abounds here in Venice, and I love that. It's really, I think, actually got my own creative energy flowing. I feel like my energy was very blocked at home in the Palisades in a way I didn't realize. Just being in the house every day, and I mean, I'm very grateful we have a house still standing, but being there and being in the neighborhood and being just around every reminder of Molly was so limiting and depressing for me that when I got out of that environment in a way I never would have chosen ever, I felt like everything started to flow more for me, and it is now, and that's why I'm talking to you, and that's why I'm writing, and I am embracing that. So we go for an early dinner, and a strange scene unfolds right in front of us outside. So John and I are sitting there, we're sitting inside by the window, and we hear some guy screaming, "I just want an apology. You just need to give me a fucking apology." And all of a sudden, we see this woman just laid out on the ground. Like, the restaurant has an indoor and outdoor part. And in the middle of the outdoor part, this young woman is just laid out on the ground. And I don't know if he shoved her or hit her or what, but she hit her head on the ground and was lying there for a good 20 minutes. Everybody's, trying to figure out what's going on, trying to help, calling the first responders who come out to the scene. And that's, anytime I see an ambulance or hear sirens, I am just transported back to January 31st, 2021, when Molly had her accident and they had to come and try to save her. So it's really, we use the word triggering. It's very triggering. And any episode of any man abusing a woman takes me right back to being a kid, because I witnessed and experienced so much of that, and I hate it. And it's so viscerally like painful and upsetting. And I was very upset and worried for the woman and hated to see what happened there. And she ultimately, was okay. It looked like she was conscious. They helped her, and everything went on. The evening went on. But a really kind of jarring scene on an already upsetting day. But we went on, we had dinner, and we got into an interesting conversation that I thought I would talk about here with you. So, as I've shared, some folks have used Molly in a way to attack me, or attack my family, and obviously it's really upsetting for us guys. I mean, of course, right? We share Molly, and we have the Molly Stein Sapir Foundation because this is how we find meaning in our loss. Like, if you've ever read, I recommend to anybody, people ask me this, like, which books helped you the most? The books that helped me the most are Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor. And the basic premise of his book, the basic tenet underlying his book, is about the fact that we control so little of what happens to us in life, but we control how we respond to what happens to us. And David Kessler's book is also, interestingly, titled, Finding Meaning. And it's about how we find meaning in suffering, in loss, and grief. And the way I live with the fact that I don't have Molly here anymore, which it could be completely paralyzing for me. And I often feel like it is. Like, I often inside, I feel completely paralyzed and completely like I'm always out of sorts in the fact that, like, I'm in a world that she's not in anymore. It will never be comfortable for me, and it will never be okay. And the only way I go forward and do the things I do and live a life that is still a life, albeit not the one I would have chosen, but still good and still meaningful, is by doing the things I believe Molly would want me to do and that she would have done if she had lived longer. So through the Molly Stein Sapir Foundation, we are helping children who don't have the things that they need in life, that they don't have clothing, they don't have a stable home situation. They need those things, and we help to provide them. The unhoused, we help to give them basic necessities. My entire garage for months was filled with things that we purchased and we raised through donations to give to people who need them. Schools. I am a passionate champion for public schools. My life was literally saved by a public school teacher. I would have never graduated from high school or gone to college or become a lawyer if it hadn't been for a public school teacher who made it his mission, Mr. Haggard, who's still my good friend, who is one of my earth angels. If Mr. Haggard had not made it his mission to turn me around, to help me graduate from high school, I would not have done it. Many of my friends did not graduate from high school. Most of my friends got pregnant when we were teenagers, like my mom. Like most of their moms. So I would have gone down that road. So I'm a passionate champion for teachers and for public school children. And John and I were talking about the fact that one of the people who was critical of me, who was using Molly to criticize me and saying, oh, she just um, thinks she can say whatever she wants, even though it's an unpopular thing or whatever, a thing that they're upset about by using her daughter's name. No, that's not the case. That is never the case. And I did not use Molly's name in that instance, but everything I do is with Molly. Of course it is. But if you don't agree with something I'm saying, uh, leave Molly out of it. Leave a deceased 12-year-old child out of it. I welcome you to have this conversation with me directly, and we can have it here so that we can have it in a way that informs other people and other people can participate in that exchange. But leave Molly out of it. It's gross and it's upsetting. But what John and I were talking about is that, some of that criticism in that instance about me was warranted. And as I said, I am human. I am imperfect. When I am sharing things with you, they are unfiltered. I don't have someone who is sanitizing my image and my social media feed like so many people do, so many public facing individuals. I mean, I fell into this because I was in the hospital with Molly at a time when it was the height of the pandemic. There was so much grief, collective sorrow and grief in the world at that time. And Molly and I, and John, when he was allowed to be there in the hospital for 2 weeks, I think a lot of people related to our sorrow and grief because they were experiencing sorrow and grief at that time. And so we inadvertently became sort of public facing people, and we kept it going because it allowed us to give meaning to suffering. Sharing Molly with the world is the way I find meaning in what happened to us and how I have to go forward in living without her. And I try to do the things I believe she would have done if she had more time, and the things she would be proud of me for doing. But I don't always express myself artfully or perfectly. So what happened is during the fires, in the midst of the fires, um, there was an effort to move our public elementary school to another location. Now, I was never going to be going to another location because I had already decided I didn't want to be part of LAUSD anymore. I have been unhappy with the district for many years, but stayed because of the fact that we loved our public elementary school so much, and it was just part of the fabric of our lives. I had been involved in advocating for that school, for its teachers, for its students, for its principal for over a decade. Before I even had kids there, I was helping to prevent a power station from being built right next to the school. And thank goodness my friends and I were successful in that, because if we hadn't done that work and the power station was next to the school, I think a lot of more lives would have been lost in the Palisades fire. So I have great love for Marquez Charter Elementary School and its teachers and its students and its principal. So, but I had decided this was kind of my cue. Like, I have major problems with some of the things that the district and the teachers union do. And so I had decided, as soon as I saw that fire, I was like, this is our cue to exit stage right. So I knew I was not staying at Marquez. However, many Marquez families, parents and teachers and the principal were reaching out to me because I'm a leader in the community, right? And I, of course, wanted to try to help, even though it was in the middle of a fire. We didn't know if our house was making it. We knew our whole community was burning. We were in great trauma and distress. And one of the things I'm working on is kind of just being less reactive to things, right? Just sitting with things and, responding in a calmer way. But the reason people get me involved is because, like Molly, I have such passion and heart for the things that I believe in. And that includes Marquez. So, there was a whole a couple of days. It wasn't a process. That was the problem. It wasn't a process. It was a few days where it was decided to move Marquez to another location that many of the parents and teachers had a problem with and thought was not the best choice, etc., for a variety of reasons. And they didn't go through a process. They didn't allow time for people to be heard and for options to be considered and all of that. But the reason people get me involved is because they know I will I will go to the mat for the things that I believe in, and I believe in that school and love that school, and they're still involving me. So as background, I have been for years, many years now at that school, like mediating disputes between teachers, principal, and district, this triangle, which is a very odd thing for a random parent who battling cancer, a grieving parent to be doing. But I've been doing it, and it's so dysfunctional, and that's why I decided to leave the district. I was so like the principal, for example, she couldn't even get permission to paint her office. So I had to go to the district and get it for her. We had tons of garbage on the side of the school, literally boxes of curriculum, like books and stuff that wasn't being used and was trash, literally, on the side of the school. And it was raining and getting wet, and all the community members are like, what's happening here? Why is this here? And the principal couldn't get the district to remove this stuff. So she got me involved to get it done. So people bring me into things because they know I will make it happen. Like when mountains need to be moved, I will do everything in my power to move them, right? And so that's why they brought me into this conversation, even though it was not going to affect me personally. And I got involved and I did what I could, and it ultimately didn't work. They ended up doing what they were going to do anyway. But I didn't express myself in a way that was clear to people who didn't know anything. John said, like it's inside baseball. People didn't understand the dynamics. Of course, they don't understand the dynamics. So they're just looking at, a snippet of things, which is my fault for sharing a snippet of things that didn't give the background, but there's no way to give all the context and background. And that's why I like talking to you directly now and being able to explain things in a clearer way. So anyway, we're all human. I think we need to give people grace. I think we need to assume good faith of people that we know to be operating in good faith, because we have seen them operating in good faith for years. Anyone who's followed me for years knows what a passionate advocate I am for children who don't have the basic things they need in life, who have not had a good start to life, who need help, for people who are unhoused, who don't have what they need in life, who need help. Anyone who has followed me knows that that is in my heart, and that is something that I try to do everything I can and have done many things to try and do something about. So I digress. But that was a conversation we had, and I thought it was interesting, and I thought I would just bring it to you. I am meeting my friend Leslie for brunch this morning, which makes me super happy. So we can go over all of our agenda items. You've probably heard me talk about that. And that's kind of how I see this podcast, is just like an extension of Leslie and I having our coffee and talking about all of our agenda items. Sometimes it's like, this is not scripted. This is not planned. I'm just talking to you. So if I digress and go off on a tangent, bear with me. I try to always bring it back around. But, sometimes we get off on our agenda items and, I don't get to say everything I wanted to say or express it perfectly or clearly, as I don't in posts as well. So anyway, I hope you all have a beautiful Sunday and day off tomorrow. Eli was very excited when he learned that it wasn't the end of the weekend, that he has one more day. He is a homebody. He loves to be at home with his blankets and his pillows. He has a whole collection of, what are they called? Squishmallows, which he doesn't have here with him, which we have to replace because they're in our other house. But he loves just being with his books and his games and cozy in the house all day. So he was very happy to learn that Monday is a holiday. Anyway, enjoy your day, and I will see you for coffee hopefully tomorrow.